That's the way we kind of do it, is have them read it, so I know everybody's got plenty of questions, and hopefully the ones that had the answers quickly got taken care of. So, we only got one. I used to have an extra mic, and it got broken. We'd have one with the person prepared after the next one, so I'll go out there and get the mic to you as best I can. So, this now is the Q&A section, so if anybody knows, that stands for questions and answers. So, who wants to be first? Might as well start with them.
Is the Obamacare situation going to be here for good, or is it going to end when Obama ends in office?
It will be ending. It's not going to be around.
What's going to be ending?
The Obamacare.
That's good. Quick question.
I think we had full disclosure in May of 2013. It was Canadian Minister of Defense Paul Hellyer. He went on CNN and basically threw the United States under the bus, but probably deserved it with our military programs. And he just said that we've been working with him since the Eisenhower administration. Bad EPs, not necessarily, not the good news.
Right.
Well, that's, and at the end of April, beginning of May, there was a 5-day, what is it that they call it, hearing with previous members of Congress. That's, he was one of the speakers. At the same time, the one that led the whole conference was Stephen Greer.
But the media here portrayed that as a joke.
Yeah,
like
well,
some sort of a ridiculous thing.
well, because the media is going to keep saying that because they're part of the cabal, part of the dark forces. I mean, they're the one that paying their bills. They're corporations that own the media, so they're not going to say anything against themselves. So of course, anybody that says anything about APs or technologies or medicine, whatever, going to say no. This is not, don't listen to them. GMOs are good.
As a quick clarification, what we'll do is have you ask whatever question you want to ask, and if you want an answer from either one in particular or either, just ask for a general comment. That would be that simple. So who's next? Who had their hand up first over there?
Paula, do you see any changes in the political climate in Texas that's going to be any more enlightened? What are Wendy Davis's chances? This kind of thing?
I foresee that Wendy Davis will make a change, but she won't succeed in being elected.
In reference to the Republic, are you talking about the United States or just Texas?
And
Yeah, mentions Republic.
Basically the Republic of the United States. The Act of 1871 basically took us away from being under the Constitution that was written by the Founding Fathers into the what they call Admiralty Law, which basically, they made up their own Constitution, and that's why the government, the people that are elected, or the corporations and the banks are the ones basically run the laws, not the U.S. Constitution. So that will change. Yes, the Republic of the United States will be reinstituted, and supposedly the change has been signed on December 23rd, which basically that was supposed to be the 100-year anniversary of the Federal Reserve being in power. That they had a 100-year charter, but I just heard a radio show this evening before I came here that they had a 20-year charter, but since then it was just left up to either Congress to dissolve that, or if they are making such a mess, then they will be dissolved. Which obviously that's what's happening. The whole world is a mess because of the Federal Reserve, the IMF, and all the other international banks, because they're using the U.S. dollar for just doing damage, not good with it.
Thanks. Anybody else got a question? We'll get back to you, Bill.
I have a question for either both of you. What can y'all tell me about the medical field? Is it gonna go down, or are people gonna turn back to herbs and natural stuff?
Who is the, who do you want to answer?
She said either one of you.
Either one? Go ahead.
Speaks first.
I'll say something.
Now, you're asking if the medical field, if people will turn to natural? I didn't.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah. I see that more people will be turning back to the natural way, that they will, because basically you get sick because you took in a toxin from somewhere, then they give you a toxin from the pharmaceutical company so they can make money. The doctor makes money off of you, where if you just don't put the toxin in your body, you don't get sick.
And also the ETs have a lot of technology. We also have it. I mean, humans have invested all kinds of cures for all kinds of diseases, but the people in power, the biotech corporations, don't want that information out there. There are cures for cancers and all the diabetes and you name it, but the media and the corporations don't want that because they lose money, like you said.
Right.
So, yeah, I haven't had any health insurance for probably the last 10 years. I depend on myself. If I get sick, I got holistic doctors I can go to, and they give me herbs and vitamins and stuff like that. So I don't need them.
That's right.
Good evening. Hi, Bob.
Hi.
What do you think about, is there going to be a continued destruction of our leadership within the armed services? I'm talking specifically about middle management, the young people that we have trained to go in there and lead are all being basically drummed out, the good ones. What is going to happen there? How is that going to affect our armed services?
The armed services or the military or the Pentagon is split about 70-30. 70 good, 30 bad. So there is also an internal struggles. That's why you see some generals either quitting or being, they said that, they did something bad and they get, booted out or something like that. But that's because of the internal struggles. The bad ones are being kicked out. Eventually, the Pentagon will stop all the wars because they are illegal. If you're not going to see that announced on CNN, but you're going to see somebody say, okay, well, they had sexual whatever.
I'm not talking about the generals. I'm talking about from your Lieutenant JGs to your Lieutenant Colonels, because there is a massive movement since about 2005. The kids that have been trained, let's say at each of the academies, there has been a massive turnover here. We are losing the quality young people that we need. That's where I'm addressing that. Yes, I realize what you're saying about the generals, and I agree with the bad apples are getting put out. But we're losing a lot of the very good gut leaders that are going to be the leaders tomorrow. And is this going to stop or going to continue?
I don't know enough about that, but what I know is that, once all the changes start happening, we don't need to go to war. So we don't need, militaries to be there. Expect that to happen probably in the next 3 years.
You said 3 years?
By 2016, things, basically the 2012 changes didn't end in 2012. They're going to continue on, and a lot of the people like Drake Braden and everybody else talks about, expect things to. 2016 will be a different year than when we are now. Technologies, food, financial, everything's going to change. Everything will be different by 2016.
Will humanity be awakened to the quantum field or quantum physics of energy that they have available to them to develop into that fifth dimensional person?
You want to guess it?
Either one of you.
I'll start. Yes and no. Those that are not awake, they will be put in front of a TV to learn. They will go to school. They will get a crash course. People that don't want to learn, they can't help them. But right now, maybe there's 2% of us that are awake out there in numbers, but our energy equals, about 50% in energy-wise. So we're almost there as far as energy, but as far as quantity or the number of people, we're maybe about 2%. But that will shift fast, because once you have UFOs up in the sky, nobody can deny them. They're going to come down and talk to us, and they'll be on TV. Nobody, they're going to change their mind. Also, part of the financial system that we're under, we're slaves. They go to work 24/7. You don't have time to research or do anything else, and that's what will change people's attitude and being able to look for something else other than what they've been trained to do for years.
Yeah, there will be a growing awareness and a shift in the culture. And, the ones that are not willing to change, there will be that small group. But eventually, the mass will shift to greater awareness.
Considering the economy, you were mentioning 3 countries which coins were more stable than ours. What about gold? I heard just briefly, I couldn't understand what they were talking about, that there is some type of gold, something that is not a coin that you can buy and is a good investment. Does anybody know about it?
Well, gold bullions, that means, gold that's pure, not, made into rings or anything else. That's always has been as an investment. But the governments
What are you
have
talking about?
gold bullions, like, they would be like coins, or they can be bars, gold bars. And it depends on how many ounces you want, how many, what is the value. But values can change. We give everything value. Just because gold has been used as a currency or a means of exchange, it's just an agreement that we have.
I think she was asking about Bitcoins, though. I don't know.
Yes, but is that going to be a good
Bitcoin?
investment?
It comes and goes. I mean, again, one day it can be $500 worth, and the next day it can be 100, sometimes 20. I mean, it's also, again, there is nothing hard about it. It's basically somebody came up with the currency.
It's been described as a Ponzi scheme, but I mean, it's a matter of opinion, so.
Yeah, I mean, we are the currency. Our value, our labor is what gives the value.
I wanted to ask a question regarding your housing crisis. Do you know approximately when? What are some of the causes that would create that? How long would that last? What would that entail as far as how we were to go to the good parts of utilizing our energies to correct that? Is it based on political or something that we actually do to create this housing crisis?
I think the housing crisis will be a fallout again of the prices, and because of the lending, government lending and the lending rules, that the average person will not, they'll just make it to where no one will be able to get a house. So therefore the value will fall down, only cash will prevail. And they'll probably keep on until the end of the year. I see it starting in about 3 to 4 months.
Ms. Paula, do you see the volcano awakening, or is it more destruction?
I see it as awakening.
If I can say something. Well, basically the natural disasters we're seeing is a reaction of Mother Earth to us and to the changes. It's not like, they have been predicted, for, the volcanoes were dormant, so all of a sudden they wake up. It's, the crust is changing, the earth is changing, we are changing, all of us are happening at the same time. And most of the natural disasters will be minimized. We could have had worse disasters by now, but there's a lot of good EPs helping us.
I believe you mentioned, Paula, that Hillary Clinton was going to run for president in 2016, but we've heard the number 2016 thrown around as when there might not be any war, and I'm wondering whether the two-party system will not even be here in 2016. Do you see any trends of that abolishing?
If we get to the point we govern ourselves, then the government will be just an administrative power, not a force power like they are right now, and they do more destruction than good. Once this disclosure, once all of the stuff is happening, then once people realize that they don't need someone else to tell them what to do, and they are at a level where they can behave better, they don't need to be controlled, then we don't need government. Government will be just, administrative.
I see a little bit different than what he does. I see it as another third party again coming in to the political arena. Only this third party won't necessarily be the Tea Party or whatever, but it will be a stronger party that may eventually take over maybe the Republican Party, because, like the Republican Party was the Whigs before it was the Republican Party, and I see this third party eventually becoming stronger and the Republican Party diminishing.
This is mostly just a response in regard to the query about the military infrastructure, and also in accordance to what Bob was saying about the conclusion of national warfare, which we can also consider how this may transition into internal conflicts within what we're understanding as the civil uprising we're beginning to see with the corrupt militant structures and the governments that are dwindling and they're depleting. But one thing that you brought up was what we'll be seeing with the future generations of the military structures that will be utilized for further and future purposes. And so one thing to consider is if we're dealing with the civil uprising in accordance with these various movements taking place and a lot of activity that we may be seeing here in the next few years, it may be something to consider with a lot of the military personnel involved, if they're willing to take action against their own brethren, against their families and friends, and how that may be in accordance with, let's say, other nations, and something to that extent. It's something that a lot of people haven't considered, but when we're dealing with the reserves and something to where we're actually fighting each other in some senses we've seen in civil warfare, it's something that a lot of the military personnel will have to really use as their best discernment to decide, are they going to be going for their own people, or are they going to be sticking with the few forces dwindling that we may see, at least grasping some sense of control that they can hold on to. So that may be something to take in consideration as well.
There has already been some talk about a lot of the young people that are, say, the middle, what I call middle management, that they would not go with the old style, that they would go to protect and serve the people here, not the other. And that's going not only with the government, but with, I'm talking about government for the people, by the people. And that they would also be going with helping to set up. A lot of these kids have been trained as engineers, civil engineers for infrastructure. And what you're talking about is how they will be. The problem is, if we disperse them, how are we going to bring back together an organization where we can run the country? And their skills are what we are going to need, not only in leadership, in military leadership is over here, but I'm talking about leadership just on a day-to-day basis in our governments, our local people. So that's where I'm coming with, what are we going to do? Why are we running these people off, totally getting this disenchanted with help and volunteerism and help, because that's what we're going to need to rebuild an infrastructure.
I think it'll really depend on how depending on if it's military or just government, politically, otherwise, or whatever it is, if the direction that leadership is oriented toward will really depend on how we'll see that movement take place. And so I think that it really depends on the discernment of those generations that are coming up into those positions. So.
I can see your point. Yeah. And I can see Bob's too.
Yeah.
I don't have a question, I just have confirmation already for one of the predictions. Actually, went into effect today. And it's mortgage changes that are made, the mortgage is a whole lot more strict. And the mortgage industry and the predictions already have been, of course, that it's going to cost people where they cannot buy homes, or they're going to have a much harder time buying a house. The conventional loans have changed to where the down payment has to be larger. Most of them, the 80-20 loan that used to happen is no longer. And so it's become a lot harder to afford a home because of that. The realtors are trying to fight the law and try to get it changed, but of course it's going to take time because it just went into effect. I think it was today that it went into effect. The mortgage companies have a little buffer zone, like you said, March. They have a little buffer zone where they have to adjust, and by March they're going to have it done. We had the sound on my phone, and there was no result intended by the Over app on my phone.
Can I respond?
Question? Did you need a response to that? That was her response to something else. So.
Okay, well, I mean, can I say something about that?
Sure.
Well, I mean, again, part of what I'm saying and part of what I'm reading is that, once the financial system changed, then there is, you can own as many homes as you want if you want to, but the restrictions are not going to be there. The loan itself have nothing backing it up. The promissory note is basically once the promissory note reaches the bank gets paid on that loan from the Federal Reserve or Wall Street. So the bank is already paid. All they do is that for the rest of the year is collect interest on the stuff that they already paid for, and that's illegal. That will change. I can give you more information, and I can give you more websites to look at, and there's a lot of information out there. Nothing is being public right now because nobody wants to change, but it will happen.
That's a good point too, and make that point is that both will be available. We'll get you their information after, so whatever doesn't get covered, we'll see that you get in contact, especially Bob, because Bob, we can have him here all night. And,
I'm full of it.
you are, but not, that's a whole separate thing.
I was just wanting to get some clarification on how that might look, where things are going to change and it's going to be better, and we're not going to, well, what are we going to do about housing and, yes, things like that, some practical things. What is that going to look like? We're not going to how are we going to buy a house, or how's that going to happen?
If you need a house, it will be registered to you.
It'll be what?
Registered to you. You'll just get the title for it.
Wow. Okay, I need a house, or you go.
Well, you already have a house, mortgage will be gone. If you're renting an apartment, the owner of the apartment will get compensated for it. So you're living free, in a sense. Because there will be a lot of money set aside for each person to live and have the basics of life afforded and available. If you want to work and make more extra money, go for it. You're not going to lose your job, or you're not going to do anything else. It's the St. Germain Fund is basically getting the power back to the people, because for the last a few hundred years, since the 1600s or 1800s, when the Rothschilds came on board, they took over the finances of Europe, and they they fooled Congress here into financing this currency here, and that's why we're in this trouble. All of that is illegal. It will go away. So, if a house is already built, it's just a matter of, you make an agreement with some sort of agency. This is the house you want. This is where you want to live, and they will give it to you. Or they will set aside the money for it. That's yours, sort of.
Bob, is that happening this year?
I hope so.
Though we're not confined to 2014, this is supposed to be about 2014. So maybe when you have a question, and Bob starts, you might say, well, is that, what kind of that is gonna happen this year? So that would be more specific, because that could go on, yeah.
Yeah, the things are in works. I mean, all of the stuff is happening in the background. It's just a matter of it being released to the public and how, because, you know, if they say tomorrow all mortgages is gone, everybody's going to be in chaos. So they want to introduce the stuff over time and, you know, they're going to educate people about it first before they release it. You know, they're not going to say tomorrow, no more loans.
Question, in terms of positioning, priority, if you want to end up with money, is it a better time to sell now?
Sell what?
A house?
A house? I'm not a real estate person, but I'm saying, I mean, it doesn't matter because house values, again, if they're built, it's already paid for. All houses that are been built, if they had a mortgage, they're already paid for. You know, the Federal Reserve created money out of thin air, and if you look at the legal documents that you sign, they're basically telling the bank, okay, here's your money. You can come and get it based on that promissory note. If you read it and have somebody that explain it to you, I'll have a website. It's i-uv.com. This is Brian Kelly and other people that have put together this website. They have a lot of documents, a lot of forms that you can look up and the history of where all this stuff happened.
Well, could you repeat that, please?
i-uv.com.
V as in Victor or V as in
V as in Victor.
I-UV.com?
Yep.
Bob, what about the homeless when this happens? You know, we have people sleeping on the streets and under bridges.
There's 6 houses to every homeless person that are empty right now. So there's plenty of housing to go around.
I know there's a question there somewhere, there it is. There's a local guy, Tom Moore, that has a newsletter. Anyway, he said that, this is for any one of you, that supposedly the ETs are going to land in, of all places, Russia in 2015, and that's part of the disclosure. And I'm just going to ask what y'all thought about that.
It's a possibility. Right. I think that whenever we talk about the extraterrestrials and where they want to land on our planet, it doesn't make them any difference if they land on Crawford Branch or in Russia.